When Jeff Flanagan was announced as the official for the Florida State Duke game, I jokingly tweeted out, "We will absolutely be doing a ref video this week." Well, you guys aren't going to be disappointed because that is what we're going to do. But it's not just the refs that we're going to talk about today. There's a little bit of a frustration within the Florida State fan base, and myself included, on just how hard it was to watch ABC's broadcast of FSU versus Duke, and there were three main culprits. The refs were the first one, but then I think some new rules impacted some things. I think Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit impacted some things. We'll talk about all of those in today's video. We are going to start with the refs, and I'll try and go quick on this. Again, I'm thankful that Florida State continues to win games. This would be really frustrating to have to do after a loss, but there is blatant incompetence at the ACC level. Miami fans have been complaining about this because they've gotten screwed a couple of times. I don't have a problem with that, but they've gotten screwed. Syracuse has gotten screwed. Clemson gets screwed just like we do pretty often, and it's frustrating to see, and so we'll continue to call it out. All right, with just over 10 minutes to go here in the first quarter, this is the big Duke run that absolutely goes off. It ends up being a touchdown. And Kalen DeLoach is getting held here on the edge. He's trying to set the edge. He's trying to get to the running back. I'd say 9 out of 10 times, maybe 19 out of 20, whatever number you want to use there, he certainly gets to the running back there and at least forces him down before he gets that first down. We'll move quickly through these. I don't think there's any reason for me to belabor the point, but an obvious, blatant missed holding. Now, Duke was moving the ball well on this drive anyway and already had it in FSU territory. I'm not saying they wouldn't have scored, but you stack them back here in 2nd and 20, if you call that correctly, and they probably don't even end up getting that touchdown on the first drive. This one was, I don't know. I don't know if it's so egregious, but I don't think that Noles really pushes here. And I know his hands are on his back, but this is not a play where he forces him down. He doesn't extend at all. In fact, his hands touch his back, and as soon as they do, you can see Noles pull his hands away. And so if he extends his back, I think that's more of a block. I don't think Noles did anything here that warranted the 10-yard penalty. It backs FSU up. They don't get anything going on this drive. They have to punt the ball away. This is a 50-50 call to me. Again, every 50-50 call, though, seems to go against Florida State and the ACC refs. Again, I don't know if it's because of the way that we said we were probably leaving the conference or not, but that play on Noles just I didn't see him extend at all. Now, maybe that's a tough call for the refs. Maybe if you see your hands on the back and the defender sells it really well. To me, it didn't even look like he pushed. It looked like he was diving for Coleman. But again, frustrating because the refs are always going to err on the side of screwing FSU. Here's one that was weird. A tackle happens. The whistle blows. Trey's on the ground. And then a late hit happens. We tackle him again. And the flag was actually thrown by the officials here. But for some reason, they let it go. They didn't. They picked up the flag. This would have been a huge play. It would have given a Florida State an obvious first down. You can't tackle a guy twice. Whistles are blowing, and you have not only one guy, but two guys come in and hit him. Now, it wasn't an incredibly rough play. I don't think it was malicious by any means. I think they probably just thought that he didn't go all the way down. But with the whistles blowing, you have to call that. That's like 3 seconds after the whistles are blowing there. Again, one that's maybe hit or miss, but certainly did not do Florida State any favors with the no call here. All right, another big one where they bounce a run to the outside, and we'll talk about the announcers and broadcasters here in just a minute, but they kept talking about how Florida State wasn't doing a good job setting the edge, and that just was not the case. Tatum is here trying to set the edge, and you can see him being pulled down. Like, he's literally trying to square up, and his shoulder pad is being pulled by the offensive lineman, and so he gets pulled down. Another first down for Duke. And another missed holding call. Credit to Duke. And again, I don't say this was dirty or anything. Like, there's holding on every play. I get it. But they were getting away with it, and the refs were letting them get away with it, and so they stayed with it. And so shout out to them because I don't, they did what they needed to do to try and win the game. All right, here's one that I tweeted about, and, I was actually mistaken. Like, you can face guard in college. The problem here is the contact. The problem is that he's got his hands on Johnny Wilson, and he is in his chest while Johnny's going up to get the ball. So face guarding, not necessarily the issue. The issue is this is defensive pass interference. When you're up into the receiver's chest and you have your hands on him, that is defensive pass interference with the ball in the air. It should be obvious to the official when he is face guarding. There's an official right there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. There's not one over the top. He's more in the middle of the field of play, so maybe that's where he missed it. But, man, that's a frustrating one because that is DPI. It should have been first and goal on the 2. Here's another one where Braden Fisk just absolutely gets mauled, tackled there in the backfield on a 2nd and 2. Now, they were moving the ball well in short yardage situations. Maybe they do that anyway, but Fisk blows that up if not for this hold. I mean, he's being tackled there. He is literally being tackled to the ground. He's got a beeline for the running back. He probably blows this up for a 3 or 4 yard loss, keeps 3 points off the board if it's called properly, or if the Noles can get a stop on 3rd and long after a 3 or 4 yard loss if Braden Fisk isn't held here. Again, there's holding on every play. I get it. A lot of these are holding calls, but man, these were egregious. They got so bad that on this one, Kirk actually called it out. In fact, this is where he talked about Florida State not doing a great job of setting the edge. Jared Verse literally got his hands on the running back, but is being pulled down from the other side. And watch this. The behind angle is even worse. He gets his hands out. He's trying to grab him, and he is being held back. I don't know how this wasn't called. I don't know how they got away with this. It sets up a 1st and goal, and Florida State does stiffen up. They do get a stop. They force Duke to just kick a field goal there. But again, another hold missed by these ACC officials. Last one is one that I thought was pretty blatant, and I don't know how it wasn't missed. Usually there's so much love for offensive players and offensive skill guys that they call all of these. Jordan does a great job getting away from the sack, throws it up to Keon, and there's an obvious hold. Maybe you missed it on that one, but Keon is raising his arms like asking, where in the world is it? They show the reverse angle, and yeah, he gets held there. He gets twisted and pulled around. You can see his shoulder pads leveling back out, and then you can see it get pulled back the other way. When a guy's running 4.4, 4.5, and he's covering 10 yards about every second, you could say that ball is overthrown, sure, but man, that 1 second that he was pulled down probably accounts for that 10 yards that you just missed. And so, I don't know. Does Keon go catch this thing if it's not, if he's not held? Possibly not. Like, I don't know. But for it to not even be considered in today's football is pretty egregious. Keon gets held pretty bad there. And then I will say this, the refs at that point, so going through the rest of the second half were actually pretty good. Like, there weren't a lot of things late in the game that we really had to complain about. I don't know the real reason for that. I don't know if that's because Riley Leonard went out, and so it would have just been obvious if they continued to call things against Florida State time after time after time. I don't know if the idea is to keep games close so that more people stay tuned in and more people watch commercials, because the entire game felt like commercials. I don't know what the strategy there is. I don't know if it's trying to screw Florida State for, again, the Board of Trustees meeting and trying to leave the ACC and all this, that, and the other, but it is every week, and it doesn't seem to get any better. For some reason, I don't know if Flanagan fell asleep or not, but his crew did get better in the second half, or maybe there were just less things to call because Florida State was starting to put it on Duke there. But that wasn't the only thing that was tough to watch on Saturday night. Listen, I understand that this entire thing is about money. I understand that that's what sports have developed into. But, man, I felt like I watched more commercials on Saturday night than I watched football. And I tried to tell people that when these new rules came into effect, the new rules weren't for player safety. Acting like the NCAA cares at all about its athletes is asinine. They don't give two craps about the student athlete. They don't give two craps about your favorite player or my favorite player, Jordan Travis or Jared Verse or any of these guys. I promise you that. They do not care. So acting like that was going to be why they made new rules to shorten the games and have the clock running more is absurd. They shortened the game to have the clock running more and kept the game windows 3+ hours. Well, if there's less game time, what is there more time for? Commercials, money, revenue. More money for the networks, more money for the conferences, more money for the NCAA. It was never about player safety. It was about making more money. And it made the game pretty unwatchable. Now, the ABC game is always the worst. I understand that. When you're the primetime, big dogs barking team out there that gets all the eyes, that's what has the most commercials. It's much worse than a noon game. For example, the Wake game this weekend on ABC will not be as bad, but it's still not good. And it made the game pretty unwatchable at times. There were times where we went to break and Florida State was driving the ball, had things kind of rolling for them. We went to break for the fourth quarter, and then a Duke player got hurt the first play on the fourth quarter, and Florida State ran one play in 12 minutes of actual time. Duke's defense was on their heels. Duke's defense was struggling. Duke's defense could not catch their breath until ESPN, the ACC, ABC gave them a 12-minute rest in between those two things. Made it unwatchable. Man, I don't know who crawled up Chris Fowler's butt and pissed him off over Florida State, but we joked about this in 2014 when he absolutely sounded like he hated watching Jameis Winston and the Noles win then. But Florida State's a top 5 team. He wasn't covering Western Kentucky or where I went, Liberty, or some obscure college that you've never heard of. He had multiple screw-ups on kids' names. Calling Deuce Spahn on the kickoff return, said that several times. Called him Jordan Daniels. Again, probably mixing up Jaden Daniels there. Messed up Jared Verse's name a couple of times. Okay, I can see Deuce, right? Like, I am not trying to slam on the kid, but like, yeah, not a kid that you're all the time hearing from. Not a kid that you maybe hear his name a ton. But how do you mess up Jordan Travis? How do you mess up Jared Verse? It seems like Fowler just doesn't care, and maybe that's just his disdain for Florida State. Also, again, criticizing the Noles when there were clear and obvious holding penalties, criticizing the Noles for not setting the edge when they're literally being tackled. Herbie literally tried to do it, and I'll say, I like Herbstreit a lot. He gets a lot of hate, but Herbstreit literally started talking about how the Noles weren't setting the edge, then said, oh yeah, well, they might have gotten away with a holding there, and then went right back to talking about how they weren't setting the edge very well. Like that wasn't something that Duke was doing over and over and over again. And so we tried to show you the clips, the ref video. I know some of you guys hate the ref videos because you feel like we're complaining, but we tried to show you that to show you Herbie was way off base. Florida State would have been setting the edge fine if they weren't getting tackled along the edge every single play. All in all, an unwatchable product at times. But the Noles did what they needed to do. They overcame all of that trash. They overcame the refs. They overcame the 15-minute breaks for Duke when a guy got hurt and the end of the quarter and everything else. Whatever. They got out of there. They got the win against the highest-ranked team that they're going to play until Charlotte, maybe. Maybe a rematch against Duke. We'll see. A good job by the Noles keeping their composure. The ACC refs were being ACC refs again. I honestly hate complaining about the commentators, but man, how many names can you mess up when you're doing a game for a top 5 team, the number 4 team in the country? Jordan Daniels and Deuce Spahn and messing up Jared Verse's name too. Like, I don't get it. But we move on. Florida State probably having different announcers next week for the noon kickoff. We'll see if the B or C team can do a better job than the A team did last week. Hey, appreciate you guys. Do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button if you made it all the way through the video. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.